everyone, and welcome back to weekly school lunchbox ideas, where I'm going to show you everything I packed inside my kids' school lunchboxes this week. As always, the recipes are available in the description box below, and if you are a member, your printable recipes are available complete with the shopping list. I'm going to leave the link below for those of you who are interested in joining. Now let's get started. For this week's lunch, I will be packing leftover meals from dinner. This definitely makes my morning go a lot faster and easier because all I have to do is reheat it and add a couple of simple sides. First up is chicken pot pie. Now, if you're familiar with my page, you know that I make this all the time. It's one of my 10-year-old's favorites. I've played around with the recipe over the years, but I think I finally nailed it. Here I have 3 boneless, skinless chicken breasts, about 1.5 pounds or so, and I'm just seasoning both sides with salt and pepper. Into a pot, I'm going to add some olive oil, and once the oil is hot, I'm going to sear the chicken breast until brown, just to give it some color, and this step really gives the broth a depth and flavor. After about 4 minutes or so, flip and sear for another 4 minutes, then add enough chicken broth to submerge the chicken. I think I used about 4 cups or so. Let it come to a boil, lower the heat, cover, but leave it slightly ajar and cook for about 10 to 12 minutes. In the meantime, I'm going to prep the veggies. Here I have some carrots, celery, and onion. I'm also going to mince some garlic. However you cut the veggies, just be sure to cut them into the same size. The chicken should be done by now. Carefully remove and transfer to a plate. Just look at that gorgeous broth. We're just going to keep this warm and let the chicken cool down a bit. Into a deep skillet, heat a bit of oil and add the diced carrots, celery, and onion. Cook until softened, about 5 to 7 minutes. Then add some minced garlic, cook for another minute. Create a well in the center and melt some butter. Then sprinkle some all-purpose flour on top. Toss it into the veggies and cook for another minute or so. Then we're going to slowly add the broth, about a cup at a time, and stir until combined before adding any more broth. Then add a cup of milk along with some salt, pepper, dried thyme, and stir and let this mixture thicken. In the meantime, the chicken should be cooled down by now. We're just going to cut the chicken into small pieces. If you know me, you know that I do not like shredded chicken at all. The texture is just not my favorite, and I'm not even going to get into what it looks like. Visually, it's unappealing to me. Now I'm going to add some frozen peas. Some frozen corn would also be good. Add the chicken and stir. Adjust seasoning to your liking. And now I'm just going to place this into 4 separate small pie dishes for individual serving. You can also just use 1 large pie dish. Just be sure to save some of the filling. It's not all going to fit anyway. Today, I will be using puff pastry instead of a pie crust. Just flatten it a bit and use a bowl or something that is slightly larger in diameter than the pie dishes that you're using. Gently place on top, brush with egg wash. It's just an egg with a splash of water. Then you're going to cut some slits into the puff pastry or pie crust. Bake at 375 degrees Fahrenheit for about 25 minutes or until golden brown. Let this cool for 5 to 10 minutes before serving. Here's the leftover filling that I'm going to refrigerate for lunch the next day. I'm also going to save the remaining broth. In the morning, I'm just going to reheat the leftover in a pot, add some of that broth and milk or heavy cream. I'm turning this into chicken pot pie soup, so add as much or as little liquid as desired. In the meantime, preheat the thermos by adding some hot water. Cover and let sit while you prep the sides. Today, they're having some plums, the soup is done. Now it's time to add it into the thermos. They're also having some rolls to go with the soup and some sweet treats. Next, we have bolognese or pasta with meat sauce. Now, I always make a large batch because it's easy to reheat and it always tastes better the next day. I'm going to start by cooking some bacon. I just cut this into small pieces. You can also use pancetta. Once it's crispy, add mild or spicy Italian sausage and ground beef. Break it apart as it cooks. Once the meat is no longer pink, transfer it all to a plate. While the meat was cooking, add some carrots, celery, and onion into a food processor. Blend until somewhat fine but still crumbly. This is my lazy way of doing this. You can of course dice them up with a knife. Now I'm just going to add this to the now empty pan. Add more oil if necessary. Create a well in the center and add some tomato paste and cook until caramelized or it turns to a deep red color, about 5 minutes or so. Toss it together with the veggies and add some minced garlic. After about a minute, return the meat back into the pot along with salt, pepper, chili flakes, and Italian seasoning. Let this cook. Here, I'm just squishing some whole peeled plum tomatoes. You can use crushed tomatoes, but then you'll be missing out on this fun step. Add this into the pan with some beef broth. At this point, you can let it simmer on low heat for a couple of hours, which was my plan, but I had to leave and run an errand, so I just transferred it to a slow cooker. I also added bouquet garni, which is just a bundle of herbs, and also a Parmesan rind for that extra flavor. You could also add milk like a classic bolognese to add richness, and just set this for like 4 hours. The longer, the better. Be sure to remove the herbs and rind and start cooking the pasta. This is the pasta that I am using. Then I just served it with chopped parsley and grated Parmesan. So in the morning, I'm reheating the leftover in a pan. Just add a splash of broth. I'm using bow tie pasta. I try not to use spaghetti or any long pasta for school because it can get messy, and the smaller shaped pasta is just easier to eat out of a thermos. They're having some sugar snap peas and some berries. I'm also going to give them some chocolate chip cookies. These are store-bought. I don't have time to do all of that. Here, I'm just using the pasta water to preheat the thermoses. Hot water is hot water, right? Now, once the pasta is done, combine it with the sauce, add a splash of pasta water to make it more saucy, and then just add it to the thermos. As some of you may know, we make curry chicken quite often around here, but I decided to make it a little different this time by adding meatballs. My kids love meatballs, and this dish was definitely a winner this week. Into a large bowl, add the ground turkey, minced garlic, ginger paste, panko breadcrumbs, whisked eggs, green onion, and a little bit of seasoning. Give it a gentle toss to combine, and using a small ice cream scoop, form into meatballs. Be sure to keep your hands damp so the meat won't get too sticky. I ended up with 35 meatballs. Now just refrigerate for about 15 minutes. Add enough oil to cover the bottom of a skillet and sear the meatballs for about 2 minutes on each side. You're going to have to do this in several batches. Now, I love replacing whole meats with meatballs because my kids will pretty much eat anything with meatballs in it. It's a great way to introduce new sauces because meatballs are just irresistible, and for the most part, kids will give it a try. At least mine would, because they love meatballs. Remove the meatballs and discard all but about 2 tablespoons of the oil. Add some diced onion and cook until translucent. Then add some tomato paste. You can also use tomato sauce or chopped tomatoes. Cook until the tomato paste has turned dark red. Add the minced garlic, ginger, and seasoning. After about a minute, add a can of coconut milk. Then fill that can with broth or water and add that back into the pan. Let it simmer, then return the meatballs back into the pan with the sauce. Cook on low heat for about 15 minutes. Spoon that sauce over the meatballs every now and then. I'm just serving this with rice, garnished with some green onion, of course, and broccoli. For lunch, I'm going to reheat the meatballs in the skillet, let it simmer, then cover. By the way, I think this is the better way to reheat any meatballs instead of microwaving it to make sure the inside gets heated through. You can also add more broth if necessary. While the thermoses are preheating, I'm just going to get the sides ready. I have an orange and sweet mini bell peppers. The meatballs are done. You can test one of them by cutting it in half to make sure it is heated through on the inside. I added some rice into the thermoses first, then the meatballs with the sauce right on top of it. Don't forget the green onion. They're also going to have some cookies for a sweet treat. Next, we have semur daging or Indonesian style stewed beef. I make it often with chicken, but there's something so comforting about eating beef that's been simmered in spices and a flavorful broth with rice, of course. Into a food processor, add shallots, garlic cloves, ginger, candle nuts, and some oil. Blend until smooth and paste-like and set aside. Now cut the beef into cubes, whatever size that you like. This next step is optional, but it's just something that I saw my mom and grandma did. Fill the bowl with water and lime or lemon juice and let it sit for 15 minutes. In the meantime, you're going to add some oil into a skillet or cast iron and cook the seasoning paste until browned, about 7 minutes or so. Be sure to stir it around to prevent burning. All right, so now I'm just going to rinse the beef until the water runs clear, then add it into the skillet. Add the seasoning, beef broth, bruised lemongrass, cinnamon stick, lime leaves, and star anise. Also some grated nutmeg because I forgot to add it in with the seasoning. Let it come to a boil, lower the heat, cover, and cook for about 90 minutes. After that, I'm going to add some potatoes, oyster sauce, kecap manis, which is Indonesian style sweet soy sauce, and Worcestershire sauce. Give it a stir to combine and return to a boil. Lower the heat and cook until the potatoes are fork tender. Remove the lemongrass, cinnamon stick, and all that good stuff and add more broth if you like. Serve this with some rice. Now my kids love this dry for some reason. I love a lot of gravy on mine, but this is how my kids like it. Green onion on top is a must. For lunch, I'm going to start with their sides. Here I have an apple. I'm just going to slice this, then soak them in salted water for 5 minutes. This prevents browning. And yes, you can do this with lemon juice, but my kids don't like that lemony taste. And no, it won't make them salty. They're also going to have some sliced cucumbers with this. I just rinsed the apples thoroughly and pat dry with paper towels. I'm also going to give them some chocolate chip cookies. Cover the leftover beef simmer with damp paper towels, and we're just going to microwave this for about 60 seconds at a time. You're going to give it a stir and then return it back to the microwave for another 60 seconds or so until it is hot. I have already preheated the thermoses. Now I'm just going to add some rice and the beef simmer right on top with the green onion. Last but not least, and I am so ready for soup season, even though it's still warm around here, I made Zuppa Tasana, and I have a feeling we're going to be making this quite often this winter. All right, last meal of the week, y'all. I'm going to start by cutting up some bacon. This is about 8 ounces. This bacon had a little bit of spice to it. I forgot which brand it was, but I got it at Publix. Anyway, it gave it a nice kick to the soup. While the bacon was cooking, I'm dicing up an onion and mincing up some garlic cloves. Now remove the bacon once it is crispy, but leave all the grease in there. Now I'm just going to add the Italian sausage. You see the grease from the bacon there? I like to essentially fry the sausage. It's so good like this. Break it apart and let this get brown and crispy. Now drain and remove from the pot. Discard all but about 2 tablespoons of the grease. Now cook the diced onion until translucent. In the meantime, peel and cut some potatoes. I like using russet potatoes because of the starch content. It makes the soup so creamy. Now rinse the potatoes, and you're going to add some minced garlic, chili flakes, salt, pepper, and Italian seasoning into the pot. Add the potatoes, chicken broth, and return the sausage back into the pot. Let it boil, lower the heat, and cover until the potatoes are fork tender. In the meantime, here I have some chopped kale. I just bought a bag of chopped kale, but I like to remove as many or as much stems as possible. Add some cream into the pot, the bacon and kale. Don't cook this for too long. The kale should be tender, but it should still have a bite to it, about 5 minutes or so. I'm just going to serve this with some dinner rolls. I also like to put a little bit of red pepper flakes on mine, but these plates are for my kids. In the morning, I'm just going to start with baking the rolls. These are the rolls that I'm using, by the way. They came frozen. I like to brush them with melted butter before and after baking. So the soup has been in the fridge overnight, so it's a little thick. I like to add just a little bit of broth to thin it out a bit and let this simmer. And now I'm just adding the soup into the thermoses. I've already preheated them. The dinner rolls are finished, and now I'm just going to brush it with some more butter. Look at them, they're as shiny as my face. I'm also going to give them each a pear and a piece of chocolate, and that is their lunch for today. And that's it. I hope you guys have enjoyed this video. I will see you next time. Bye.